We back with a whole new episode, going live with the MC. Y'all know the motto. Today we got another dope guest. That's a fact. Um, Today we got my boy Triple C. Triple C is a poet that I recently just got to meet within the last few weeks. We chopped it up, and then last week I got to see him for the first time perform live, and I was just taken away, because it's always dope to see people display their art, but then when they have like a real story behind it, not to say that a lot of people don't have stories behind their art, but some people just good at like creating. They can create out of thin air, you know. But I could tell while listening to this artist that there was a lot going on with his work. Like there was some things that he um, that a lot of people probably would feel ashamed to talk about. They would probably, crumble if the world commented on it. Things of that nature. So, I commend him a lot for sharing his pieces. It's not easy, and me myself having a bunch of vulnerable pieces to perform, I know exactly what that's like. So yeah, I was just blown away by this dude, and I enjoyed the talent. By the way, the whole night was filled with talent, but this dude came out and I feel like he commanded the entire day. He it was just like a aura to him. Like he just said like, you know what, I'm ready to be here. Like so. Um, I enjoyed that about him. So without further ado, we're gonna bring on the guest, my boy Triple C. Let's get up in here, brother. Let's see if he comes in. Give it a second. All right, guys, you know the vibes. Give it a minute. There you go, right there. Like,
Rose,
all right, what's up, man?
what's
How you
going
doing?
on?
Everything is good, man. Thanks for being
It's
here.
a pleasure.
No doubt, no doubt. You're like maybe the fourth person I ever had in the car
Word.
before. Like, do that. Yeah. So I'm starting to feel like a car is not a bad place to be.
Yeah. No, it works. It definitely works for sure.
Nah, I feel that. I feel that. So yeah, once again, man, thanks for coming on the show, man. Glad to have you. I was just telling the audience, how we
Yeah.
met. Um, Pretty much through a group chat. I haven't actually seen you before this.
Mhm.
Um, and to see you last Saturday on a Broadway stage, I thought that was super dope. Congrats again, man. You off Broadway now. That's dope. That's a huge accomplishment. So what does that feel like for you? Have you ever performed off Broadway, or have you ever been on like a huge stage with bright lights like that?
Um, Funny enough, I was just talking about it with my girlfriend not too long ago.
Mm.
Uh, Back in high school, I did you ever heard of the show Hamilton?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Back in high school, they were doing a tour around the country, and I lived back in Florida. So I think it was like the third leg of the tour, and they said like oh, for like all the high schoolers in the district, um like out of the nine schools, if you like do a piece, you can go watch like Hamilton on a school day. And I'm like, all right,
Mm.
this is fire. And it's like if you have one of the best pieces at like out of the school, then you get to open up for Hamilton. So I got the opportunity to do that one time. I think when I was around like 16 or so.
That's dope.
Yeah, that was around like I think that was like 2,700 people. Yeah, yeah. That was
You know, that also stood out to me too, while you performing. You had like this unwavering confidence. It's like you were there, and it's like you were paying attention. Like I didn't see you really close your eyes much, but you were just like in the moment, and it didn't really matter who was there. And I know a lot of us, me personally, I haven't really performed in a theater before, so I'm not used to looking at the crowd and not being able to see them,
yeah.
So it was like a few different things that I had to really adjust to, or whatever the case
Mm.
is. But those were small, that was small stuff, But again, your confidence up there, you was just like just going, and like you had like this face, like I've been here before, and I'm here to give you guys a show. So, um, was that your first, as far as the Hamilton thing, that was your first theater experience?
Yeah, I think that one was well. After the Hamilton thing, I got into like drama down there in Florida because the hip hop community down there is cool, but at the same time I'm like 16 or so it was a very like, oh, you gotta be drinking, you gotta be smoking, you gotta do drugs like type of crowd down there, and it wasn't really my speed, but I still always knew like I wanted to touch a stage. So, for that development, I got into like, I'm like, all right, let me do these school plays, let me do this, and wherever they be like, there's like some sort of musical or whatever, I would just convince the teacher. I'm like, hey, can I like rewrite this? Can I rap in this part or like do whatever? I'm like, I know you want like somebody singing here, but like, can I do this off to the side? So I got that a few times just really for, um, in terms of that musical, like this side of that theater presence. Um,
Mm.
but overall, I'm like, yo, every time I touch a stage or like from starting from younger, every time I wanted to just touch any stage that like really wanted me on it. So I'm like, all right, if I can't see the crowd on this stage, I gotta be standing where there is no stage and I'm in the crowd. I gotta do it where it's like, yo, if I have to perform in a park, I gotta do whatever. So
I feel that. I feel that.
yeah,
So what ultimately brought you to the creative arts? Like, wait, first off, I should ask, because I noticed that you do music as well. Did you start with music first or
I'll
poetry?
start with music first. Absolutely.
Okay. So what brought you into that? What was the thing that got you there?
Um, Funny enough, I like when I was younger. In my household, like none of us are really musically inclined, but all
Mm,
of us
that's
love
interesting.
music. Say that again?
I said that's interesting.
Yeah, yeah. Like none of us are like crazy. We're not really like we can't really. I don't know any of us to really be like singing hard body, or any of us really are really good at rapping or anything like that. But we all just have a deep like love for music. So
I can
yeah.
get with that.
So when I was younger, I remember just going from each person. I'm like, oh, let me go with my sister who's older than me, and she's showing me like old school music. She's showing me like the Patti LaBelle. She's showing me Frank Sinatra, the Duke Ellington, like all
Mm,
those. I'm like, I love listening to these, and she's also showing me like rock music. And I'm like, I love
mm,
listening to these. These are super cool. I go with my mom, and she shows me like the R&B, the neo soul, that's just soul music.
that's
Um,
dope.
or and like my pops, he always lived up here in New York, and I was down in Florida, but he always had this Jamaican radio station called Irie Jam
Mm,
Radio, and
okay.
I would like from that I'm like, all right, I'll always connect to reggae and Jamaica, like being my roots, and just like all Caribbean music. And
Mhm.
while I'm jumping each one, I get to my brother now, and he showed me hip hop when I was like around 6 or so, and so that's about like I'm about to show my age a little bit, but this was this was Lil Wayne in '08.
Oh
So
no.
so yeah, it like from that point I was like, "Ooh, you kind of just put me onto something
Mm,
crazy at such a young age where I'm like, yo, he's snapping right now." So from there it just clicked for me where I'm like, I want to study what he's doing and figure out like why does this feel so good, or why does this have a vibe, a connection. So even from there, like I started just writing my own raps and stuff like that.
Okay, cool. So, was Triple C the rap name, or did that come from poetry?
uh it came in a time when I started doing poetry as well. um
Okay.
but like when I was younger, I probably went through like 12 different names because I was not good at any of them. I was like, yeah, none of these names fit that well.
Mm.
I think at first, the first one I remember only because I'm like, well, there's Lil Wayne. I'm like, let me be Lil Chris. But then there's like that age of Lils, and I'm like, I'm not messing with none of that.
I've been there. I've been there.
Yeah. So, but Triple C, I think that came about in high school or so.
Hmm.
When I was there, I'm like, all right, I don't need a name that sounds super cool or it's like a one off, but I want one that's like a genuine something that can hold a reminder to myself, like, all right, what are you doing this for? I'm like,
Mm,
if I say this every time I say it, I know what it means. Like
right,
it's like saying God versus saying like Allah or Yahweh. I'm like,
right.
I know the title of what God means, so I'm like, what's the title of that I hold? So
Mm,
I made Triple C, so it's like, all right, I hold the title of myself, like my mother's family and my father's family, because that's my first name Christian, last name is Clark, and my mother's last name is Crawford. Now, so all three start with C. So I'm like, all right, this is what I always remember. And then I remember the first time I wrote it down. I wrote one P and I like did a line to write another one. I'm like, oh yeah, I'd be spelling it wrong. And I'm like,
mm.
nah. I'm like, if I spelled it like this, it's on purpose. So I like, all right, two P's L-E, so Tripple E, and then C. And I'm like, what does triple mean? Like if I broke it down, and I said, through raw internal peace and possibility, live eternally. See.
That's sick. See, I was racking my brain the whole time, like, yo, Triple C must stand for something crazy, cause I'm big on the names, you know.
Mhm.
Ever since I started learning like the meaning of names and stuff
Yeah.
like that, you
Yeah.
know, I've always like been a fan of asking people like what do their name mean. And now it's interesting because I do music, so people have like these different nicknames and stuff. So it's interesting to hear where the names come from.
Yeah.
So I think that's really really dope. Um, Bloody Prince asks, can you share your first ever poem? By the way,
Ooh,
guys, thanks for tuning in. I appreciate y'all very much. If you guys have any questions, feel free to hit the question mark right at the bottom. Me and Triple C will answer it at any given moment.
absolutely.
Do you
I
even
could,
remember your first poem? Because I don't remember my first rap.
yeah, I couldn't say I remember it off the top, but I do remember like the premise of that first poem I was really proud of. And
Mm,
it was, I think it was like in middle school or so, where this poem was like about where I could see the joys of life without without connection to my senses. So I would say like I'm deaf, but I could hear what it feels like when leaves fall. Like I'm blind, but I can imagine the idea of a rainbow in the middle of the night. You know. So I'm like
that's
I yeah.
good.
Mm,
So, one thing I noticed with your pieces, they're usually linked to a certain emotion you're feeling.
yeah.
Um, which I think is dope, by the way. I don't know if I could write a sad song while I'm sad. I would probably have to get out of that emotion. But I think that's actually pretty dope. So is that something that you've always aimed to do, or is that something that you just said, you know what, this works for me, so I'm gonna, you know, create a path based on what works?
It genuinely like became like I have to start aiming for it because
Mm,
initially it started with all right, I want to be able to do like these lyrical miracle skills. Like I'm trying to be able to do the double, triple entendres or something crazy. But
mm,
you reach that point where it's like, okay, this is really cool that I figured out how to compare 12 things at once. But if I'm not rhyming, if it doesn't have a flow, if it's not within the four count, then it's not gonna catch that feeling or emotion from a crowd or from a people.
mm, mm,
So I'm like, all right, I have to reach that point now where I have to find a feeling because all feelings are relatable.
mm.
And then be able to carry that into the next thing. So
Right.
it's been things where I have to figure out. I'm like, all right, today is like a really good day, and I could thrive off of that feeling, or I'm like, I hear that one beat, and I'm like, all right, I gotta get sorry, like I gotta feel sad, I gotta feel sorrow in this, or even like even when I'm really happy, I have to like be like, what does the angry song sound like? What does the sad song sound
Right.
like? And even though I'll be here with myself, I'm like, yo, like it sounds so cool, and I'm hyped that I'm writing it. It would probably be the most like devastating Adele type like
Mm,
emotion out of a track. So it really became like being in tune with my own emotions and like the emotions of like those I see around. Like, what was it like when I see myself on stage versus when others see it? Or what's it like when you
mm,
see your favorite artist versus, somebody who's like just starting out? So it's pulling from different perspectives and where you are and not at. So I genuinely have to lock into it. And I feel like from that performance from Saturday when we off Broadway,
mm-hmm,
all of those songs came at different, well, besides two of those songs, three of them came after my accident. So I was like, all right,
mm,
what are the things I'm feeling past this accident, like that I probably feel by myself, not with the other people around me? And
mm,
I was catching glimpses of it where I'm like, there's a sense of desperation here. There's a sense of, yo, I survived that. I'm like that exists in me. There's a sense of like, what was the story if I was to tell it in rap form, and how that came back. Some of these like I probably wrote down like for those three songs, I probably made like over 10 different verses, and
mm.
I'm like, this isn't it. This is getting close, and then like these are the ones where I'm like, I love the overall idea in these songs that came all together with it. So
Mm. So was it like a process of elimination to find like the right feeling?
initially it was, but at some point when you just had that verse, I'm like, that's the one. I'm like, I like everything else was cool. I could push these out. I could take like certain bars out and be like, oh, I really like this bar. I'll put it here. Um, One of them was like, I know the bar when I said, what was it? I said, oh, I'm gonna cop the cake and eat it too because I deserve it. Like
Mm-hmm.
that was in one of the other verses. I said, no, I could actually make that sound right here and then leave a space and
Mm.
just come back. I'm like, that makes it a lot more breathable and a lot more like, damn, that's a bar, that's a line. Let's let that one breathe. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Now that's actually sick. So I mean, because I'm kind of the same way too, in a sense of where like if I write something, I kind of stick with that.
Yeah.
Like I was called upon to write this, like this message is important for whoever, and then I just make like slight changes here and there. Like what if I feel like I've used an extra word in a sentence or something like that, or if I felt like I stretched something too long, or I need to stretch it. However that goes, but there's not really much changes to the music when I write it. It's just simple. You just feel like, and I had this conversation a while back. I said that a lot of times, we wish we could take back what we said to people, but what if that's what we meant to say to people? Like, what if that's what they needed to hear in that
Yeah.
moment, and we were the vessel that it was channeled through?
Yeah.
So I look at it that way whenever I write my music. Like I don't want to be like, oh, this ain't good enough. Toss
Yeah.
it. The people not gonna feel it. Nah, somebody
You're
gonna
like, so
feel this shit.
somebody heard this somewhere and they need to hear it again through me. You know?
Hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
So, through your music or
Mhm.
poetry, has anyone ever like hit you like you changed my life, like you saved me from, let's just say, depression or suicide, or you made me think clearly, or you helped me do parenthood, like anything
Yeah.
of the sort? Like, do you feel like, not do you feel like, has anyone ever expressed that to you?
Uh, I've gotten instances where it's like I wouldn't say as extreme as like, oh, you saved me from this, that, and the third, but I've gotten like, yo, like I'm going through this right now, and I never noticed this before. Like I remember I did this piece where I was like genuine about like heartbreak and relationships, and I
Mm,
didn't know the impact it would have until like I got off stage. And mind you, I'm I'm like, yeah, but I'm talking about like, dating, being young and doing whatever and
mhm,
difficulties in it. But then someone who's like a married man comes over to me and says, yeah, man, I've had so much difficulty in my marriage and it feels like this, like exactly what you did. I said, wow, like how I've displaying my emotions has connected to a like a true hard emotion of commitment that you're going through, and that has like given him like knowing that it's not himself alone that's working on him, that's not working on this relationship, but can actually find a way to make it progress and go further.
Right.
It made me realize I'm like, yo, my words could reach anyone and everyone. So I've gotten certain things like that, but I think that one was like the most notable and the most recent.
Now that's actually pretty
Yeah.
dope. You know, I personally don't know what to do in those moments sometimes because it's like it's like I know I'm making an impact. I know I'm saying something that someone's probably feeling right now, maybe a little bit too deeply, you
Mm,
know. But a lot of times when they come up to me and they say certain things, I'm like, damn, like it just be hitting me. I'm like, oh shit.
yeah.
Like actually, when I performed on Saturday and I got off the stage, somebody was telling me like, you know, the next time song that I performed, they was like, yo, man, I was going through a relationship just like that, man, and you just kind of, and I was just like, I ain't mean to do that. Like, don't call your
Yeah.
ex now, like, you know, because
Mm,
it sounded like he was missing his ex when he
mm.
said it, and I was like, nah, don't go backwards, like, you
Yeah, it's
feel
like
me?
I'm
Like,
like, oh wait, hold on. I'm like, don't go. Like I'm
yeah,
putting
it's
you on
like the
game.
message, yeah, the message is to get away, don't go back, don't
Yeah.
re-trigger nothing, yeah,
Mm,
like, but yeah, like some people kind of you look at you as a savior in a sense. And sometimes it can hold a lot of weight. You know, sometimes you feel like, you know, you might be responsible for people's lives at a
yeah,
point, you know, and I would hope that it doesn't ever get that far for any of us, you know, like
truly.
there was actually a thing, so I watch a lot of interviews and stuff like that. I'm always like into like the podcasts and stuff. I want to hear from actual artists, creators, actors, whatever you
Mm,
do. I want to hear from it, from you, you know. And one thing they always seem to talk about is the entitlement
mm,
from the people that grow attached to them.
yeah.
So do you have any fans?
I feel like I do have some people that like, but that would ride for me really hard. I see it. I really do appreciate that. But I always know like being at this place now that I'm in, like I'm like, all right, I'm going higher no matter what. I could always have that space right now to be like, yeah, let's relax. We're getting a little too far past the plot.
Right.
Um, yeah, I know it's like a real like savior thing for many people, but I always like I remember at a time I would write music just so I'm like, all right, these are experiences where I don't want other people to go through that I've gone through.
Hmm.
And then even though like I've written it out, I've been so articulate, so like, oh, I want them to know like this is the dangers of this story or this, then the third or whatever.
Hmm.
I go back and I make the same mistake. Like it gets I'm like I'll go back and I'll read the song. I'm like, how the hell did I tell myself 3 years ago not to do this? And then I
That's
still
tough.
do it. Yeah. So I'm like, I I I understand like sometimes the message is gonna miss or sometimes the message is gonna be lost in translation.
Mm.
But in reality, it's no different than us as artists being like genuine like books from those who have passed on. Like we're genuinely giving off the lessons or giving off the story of what we got through experiences. It's not like the
Right.
end all be all of this is the direction you have to go. But if you are in a situation similar to mine, I could show you a path like this is the path I took. And you could genuinely hit a left or a right and still end out good.
Mm.
But it's all up to that perspective and reality of what's taken, So it takes the
Nah,
people's.
that's
Mm,
dope. That's dope.
mm,
Um, I ain't gonna lie, this is something that bothered me since Saturday. I'm a little curious, and you can, if you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
gotcha.
But you did mention on stage that you almost
Yeah.
died. So, if you care to talk about that, what was that about? Like,
What? That was crazy. I.
thanks for sharing, by the way. Let me just say
Oh.
that because a lot of people were just like, "Oh, why did he say that?" But I was like, you know what? I'm glad you actually let people know that you were going through a tough time. Like,
Yeah. Like that's the main thing. I'm like through everything. I'm like, if I feel like I have to hold something back, then it's either that I'm like, all right, I can't fully give like a fair message to what happened,
hmm.
or I'm holding myself back, and I never want to hold myself back.
Mm.
So letting so much time pass now, where I'm like, yeah, yeah, like I could say this for sure. Um,
Mm.
I was in my like last semester semester of college just to get some work done out the way, and then me and my friends from Florida were like, "Yo, let's go on a trip." Like one of my dogs was going on a family trip, and he said, "Oh, yo, you can come through, and we grab our other friend, and we all go to Dominican Republic and
Mm,
stay at this all inclusive resort and just vibe, have a good time." Like it's a celebration for I'm graduating, another friend is graduating, one's like in the military, and
right.
like we're probably supposed to be there for like 5 days, and then on like
Mm,
day 2 or 3, we're like driving doom buggies out on these out through these mountainsides, through sand, through dirt, road like concrete. And I wasn't driving at first, so I'm like, oh yeah, no, these things can hold. These things are heavy. Like we're all good, and
mm,
it's relatively safe. So now we're about to drive back to the resort, and I take the wheel. I'm like, all right, I got this. And while driving back, we take a different route, and the road is twisting, it's turning, there's mad potholes all in the ground, and the like, you're supposed to keep up with the head of the driver, and he starts speeding. So
mm,
I'm like, all right, I'll stay with it, but I'm not trying to speed or none of that.
right.
So and I see a one pothole ahead of me. I'm like, all right, let me dodge this one, and the road immediately turns right. So I'm
Mm,
like, all right, let me catch this and not go hit into a tree. I turn right, and the dune buggy doesn't have the weight, and we fall over on the side, on the left side. Mind
mm,
mind you, there's a door, but there's no window, there's no real protection, and like I'm taller, so I'm already half out. So when it flipped over on the side on this concrete, now my arm kind of just like scraped against it while going forward on the ground, and like also like the dune buggies like bars landed on it. So
yikes.
yeah, it was bad. What it like I already knew immediately. I'm like, yeah, that broke. It was whatever. Like I closed my eyes. I'm like after I heard like all the crashing stopped. I closed my eyes. I'm like, all right, real fast. Let me feel everything. I feel my legs. I feel my torso. I feel my arm. I feel my head. I'm like, all right, I'm straight. I said, oh wait, I don't feel my left arm.
Mm, mm.
When I open my eyes, I see my arm is like sideways, like backwards. I'm like, damn. I'm like, time to go home.
Damn,
Yeah,
that's tough. Thanks again for sharing that
no
story
fuck.
with me.
Yeah.
Um, it's just even crazier hearing that again. Like I say again because I got a PlayStation, so I met this 17-year-old earlier this year, and he was in a very similar accident, like literally the same way you just explained it. But I mean, he ended up coming out of it
Really?
worse. Like his neck was broke, his back was broke. Like yeah, he suffered a whole lot.
Yeah.
So hearing you explain that, I'm just like, damn, son. Like, oh, I don't even want to go doom buggy no more,
Yeah.
son. Like,
I
I
stay
thought
off
that was
those.
a cool thing. But glad you're still here though. Real talk, man.
Appreciate it.
I think we don't talk enough about situations like that and how it transforms our life.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you was able to go through that and come back stronger than ever. Um, and I think it's dope because I'm not huge in the poetry community. I pop out every once in a blue. I meet who I need to meet and stuff like that, and then I go back to the music scene. But
Yeah.
um, everyone seemed to like really accept you. Everyone like was well familiar with who you were. I checked out a few of your posts. Actually, you posted a story the following day, I believe,
Mm,
at another event,
yeah.
and like everyone was like really welcoming you back and everything. And I was like, yo, that's dope. Like this kid really has a whole community behind him. So, how special does that make you feel in a sense? Like obviously not above anyone else, but
Yeah.
like it's a feeling regardless. So how does that make you feel when whether it was accident related or not, like you disappeared for a while and then you came back and everyone welcomed you with open arms and love.
Yeah. What that put me over the moon. Cause like I said, like back in Florida, it was that hip hop community was genuinely like built around, you know, drugs, gangs, smoking, women. It was before I was even 18. So and mind you, I'm my mother's son. So I'm like, I'm not gonna make her go through nothing that makes her feel like, oh, my kid is in danger or he's out here doing something stupid. Like I remember one time I tried being with like a group down there, and they said they wanted to pick me up, and I'm like, oh, that would be cool, but like I'm still 17. They're like, oh yeah, now we get to sneak you into the club when we perform, and I'm like, oh yeah, what's your name anyway? And they're like, oh, we're the Black Henny team, and I'm
Mm,
like, they're like, yo, we do everything with Hennessy, we cooking the food, we put this to every event, and
mm,
I'm like, yeah, everyone's a solid like rapper, but I'm like overall, I can't really or I can't really relate in this crowd.
mm,
So when I moved up now, there were times where I jumped into the music community, but I couldn't really find like there's always a space for artists, but
mm,
it felt like everyone was really you know what it's like when you work with other artists or you go to an open mic and it just seems like, oh, this person's just trying to be on and see if they can get opportunity off of what you got going on, or like
mm.
it's like,
Cloud chasers.
yeah, it's like, oh, let's work, and then like you don't hit me up, or like I'll go chasing you down, and nothing ever connects. And I was like, damn, like I know there's a way for me to showcase my abilities, but still be in a place where like I could genuinely have a community build off of this.
Mm,
So it started with me starting like, all right, let me not just go open mics, but let me see where it could be, who's out there, and see if I could build from a place that's generally more intimate. Like it's more about the connection.
mm-hmm.
And then like mind you, I write poetry and I was into poetry, but it would never cross my mind for poetry to be that main like outlet
Mm-hmm.
until I'm like, all right, let me go rap um at this one open mic. It's called the Peace Cafe in Brooklyn. Really
Okay.
small, really intimate. It's very nice. And in there, everyone was doing whatever. There was people playing
Mm.
guitar. Someone was reading from a book they made. There were singers, and it was just a
Dope.
really dope crowd. And I was like, all right, I have this one song I really like, but I don't like the way the sound is coming out the speakers, so I'm just gonna do it a cappella in like a poetry fashion. And
Mm.
there's this one poet, bro, like named Christian. Oh, wow, I always get his last name wrong. But yo, Christian was there, and that was like he set me up. He's like, yo, you are super dope. I want you to um go to this event or this event. Like I'll put you onto whatever, put you onto what would be cool. Like, yo, if you meet this person, and like he's like, oh, if you ever go out to the city, go to the Bowery and see if you can go find Jay Rose. Jay Rose hosts the Rose Garden events. If you're ever out in Brooklyn, go to Brick and they do poetry slams. You should try that out. And from there, I kind of realized I'm like, yo, there's so many differences between poetry slams, open mics, grab the mics. I'm just sitting there. I'm like, my main thing was always writing and performing. So I'm like, as long as I can perform and work on this craft in a way where like people come out and see me, I will run anywhere and everywhere.
Mm.
So I that's how I got so like into the poetry community, where like it got to a point where I would go out and perform like every day a week. I'd go out all 7 days, and I'm like, oh, it's cool. I just saw you like 3 days ago at the last place. I posted this on my story. I'm like, yo, what's up, da da. And like, I love to like just talk to people. I'm like, yo, we don't have to connect, but like, I really like
Mm-hmm.
this about your poem. This was super dope. You could break this down. I love this, and we would just critique each other and be like, yo, I'd love to see you do a piece like this. And after a while, and that was mostly like this year. I started that back in like February. But
Mm.
after a while, I just realized I'm like, yo, I probably had made this connection with like 40 different people. And while I'm performing, say like I probably had 500 followers at the beginning of the year,
Mm.
and then by I think June or so, I had over 1,000.
Mm.
So it just made that connection, and I really had those heart to hearts with so many people. So as soon as I got into my accident, I posted it. Everyone's like, "Oh shit! Like what happened?" Da da da. Like it made that connection that I was searching for, like in rap that I couldn't find. It made that connection like of a community of those who are listeners who love hip hop, who love music in general. Like
Right.
it made it feel like, yo, I could really come back. I could really come to a place where, oh, we we not only know you, we want you out here. You know. So as soon as like I knew, I was like, oh, Steph said in November we're getting this where we could be on this lineup. And mind you, I'm in Florida right now recovering. I'm like, yo, I'll be good by November. I'll be in a decent position in November. I want to get on that stage and I want to go insane. I want to have a like great time. So I really wanted to show out.
So that's interesting. How did you make that connection with Steph then? Because you just said you was in Florida. That's actually pretty dope. That you know you was in a whole other place. So wait, you met her here,
Yeah.
okay? And then situation happened and you ended up staying down there.
Yeah. But she gave me the heads up that the show, when was it? Like she gave me the heads up about the show and like she was putting the idea together.
Hmm.
Um Initially, I'm not sure when I think she mentioned it to me around May or June.
Okay.
And then I got in the accident in July. But she told me ahead of time that she's like, "Oh, I want you on this roster after this one performance I did at One Love One Mic." Um,
It's always one love, one mic.
yo, truly, yo, that did not that is Big Brother for real, really for
Hmm.
real. Yo, he just put me on to so much game, put me on to so much like just genuine what it means to be an artist and put yourself in your work. So
Hmm.
while like I had this one performance there where he said, "Oh, the band is here," and I like got into a lottery. I was like, "All right, let me talk to the band for like 2 seconds and be like, yo, can you follow this tempo? I'm about to just start rapping. Like I'm about to start going off," which
Right.
was actually one of the pieces I did at the show too. Give Up Now, where you'll hear
Mm.
the backing track of like a sample going, "Can't give up
Right.
now." Yeah. And so I did that with the band and the response in the room that it just exploded.
Mm.
I remember Steph was there and she's seen a few of my um other performances and cuts and she genuinely was there and like, "Oh, I want you to show out and do your thing and get on." So from
Hmm.
that's how I'm pretty sure from a little bit before then we already made that connection and met before. But I think that was the one where she's like, "Oh, I could perform." Like he's not just out here like talking to people,
Right.
but he's doing his thing.
Nah, I share a similar story.
Yeah.
That's exactly how I met Steph as
Yeah.
well too, and it was also at One Love, One Mic. So to put some truth to your story,
Mm,
some more truth. Sorry, let me put some more truth on that.
yeah.
Or I guess answer the question that some people may be asking. For a music artist, yes, the poetry community does offer a lot more. I
Yeah.
know it sounds crazy to anyone listening, but
Yeah.
um, I didn't start gaining like true fans until I started performing at poetry events. And I ended up meeting Denai through a poetry slam. I'm not even a poet. Like, I mean, obviously music and poetry go hand in hand,
Yeah.
but as far as like the strategy that you have to learn as a poet compared to a music artist,
Yeah.
in a sense, is a little different. So, I didn't have those skills. All I know is that they said first place wins $200. So I
Yeah.
was like, I'm popping out. Um, and like it dawned on me while I was on the way there that I was going to be going up against actual poets, but that didn't, in
Yeah.
my
I'm like,
mind, that didn't
it's not
register. I
stopping me.
was
Like
just
I'm
like, yeah, first place. That's all I was worried
yeah.
about. So, mind you, first poetry slam, I actually ended up in third place.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
I lost to Cito Blanco,
Yeah.
and who's the other? It's another dude that usually hangs out with him. Another I forgot his name, but
I think I know who you're
um,
talking about.
it's another dark skinned brother, heavy set dude. I just forgot his name, but anyways, they were like some really dope poets, and they really moved the room. And in that moment, I was just like, okay, I see the love, and I was just ready to leave out, not on no so loser shit. The
Yeah.
event was over. I said what up to my homie that invited me out. So I was like, all right, I'm out of here. Did not stop me. And he was like, yo, I love the piece that you performed, which I think I performed during the family friendly segment. I performed that piece.
Fire.
So, he then invites me to one love one mic, which I've been doing for like a whole almost I want to say like maybe 6 months at that
Mm,
time. And then this was during April Day Summit. I I walked there. I went in there, and I think at this particular time was when Donat decided to switch up the
Uh,
format. Like before, it was like you sign your name on the list, he calls you, where you at.
yeah,
Now it's like I dig my hand in the
yeah,
hat and pick a name out, and you got to remember your number from there.
yeah.
So when I walk in there, long story short, um, every spot on the list was filled except for the number one spot. So I put my name there, and I sat down, and at this time I had to go to another
Uh,
show. So I was thinking, so Day Summit is the festival that I was a part of, but because I always showed love to Donat ever
mm,
since I met him, and One Love has been a big space for me. I've always made it my point to pop up every 2 or 3 months or however I can, But yeah. So she sat down right next to me,
mm,
and I didn't think nothing of it. I just saw her sitting there. She ended up looking back, like not at me, but when she looked back, I took that as an opportunity to ask her. I was like, "Are you performing?" She
yeah.
said no. So we chopped it up a little bit. We introduced each other. We made that connect, and then I got up on stage and I performed commerce.
Awesome.
Um, from that point on, she followed. Well, she followed me before that, but from
Mm,
that point on, she spoke to me after the show. I had to leave, so got up out of there.
yeah,
But ever since then, we just kept in touch. And around the same time, she was telling you about the show. She told me about the
yeah.
show. So I think that's dope. And yeah, Steph is definitely a real one. She really is in it for the love of the community. So shout out to Steph for that one,
Mm,
100%.
yeah. Yeah. So big shout out to Steph, really, because otherwise I'm like I got opportunities and people like that like started to see the vision that I was trying to put out, but it really
Hmm.
felt like Steph was there and said like, yo, I want to push like the bounds of whatever I can to a point where like she said like truly give it to God that we got the show, that everything went the way that it went. But it was I was like, if you were a phenomenal instrument to like making us get that done. So that was a
No,
big
real
shout out to
talk. Real talk, man. And I still think about it to this day. I mean, even though it was only just a few days ago.
Steph.
It's just, it's just like it's a huge accomplishment. And so I should ask, do you dress up often, or did that event just call for it?
That event, it really depends on the event that calls for it. Um,
Okay.
but I was like, this is the first time in a while I had to dress up like that for yeah. So I'm like, damn, how am I gonna put that together?
Yeah,
Um,
likewise.
yeah. So initially I was like, all right, it's both a theater. Like I've gone and see Broadway shows, so I'm like, I see how people dress and go to those. I see how people dress for the rehearsals or showcases. So I was just like, all right, I want something. I don't want anything really colorful, but I just want something to match the vibe. So whenever like the lights are going on around me, nothing gets
Hmm.
flushed out or looks crazy. So I'm like, for the day, I'm wearing like a light gray and white, and then for the night show, I'm just wearing black.
Nah, that's dope. I pretty much had to go through that same thought.
Yeah.
Only thing is, I wanted to do the outfit change. I just didn't have two suits or enough clothes for two suits. Like, cause I don't typically dress up, like I used to dress up for interviews, and since I haven't had a job interview in Lord knows how long,
Mm,
I didn't see the need to like really dress up,
mm,
after a while. And then, that's just me being in my hood mindset after a while, like not, like my uncle is crazy. My uncle always taught me, like as far as like being professional and stuff like that and having a clean cut look and all of that. So I've always done it whenever I needed to. But as far as dressing up, that I don't,
yeah.
I haven't really been around many places like that.
Mm,
So then I just started to like develop my mind, and like you said, like start watching how people go out to certain places.
yeah.
I watch how people go out to clubs, to how they go out to lounges. I
Mm,
watch how people go out to restaurants, to how they go out to mom and pop
yeah.
shops. Like things of that nature is just like, okay, if these people have the discipline to change, a certain aspect of them or to create a certain aspect of them, why can't you?
Exactly.
So I really felt like that it was the right call for that show. It inspired me though because I would love to do it more. Like the amount of love I got just off the outfit
Word.
alone.
Well, that looked, it was fire. It
Like
was fire.
it
Well,
felt good though. Like it really felt good. Like just people be like, "Yo, you look nice, man," or "Yo, I like this," or
yeah.
So it was a real life changing moment for me for sure. I enjoyed it.
It's good. Now you definitely deserve it because I'm like from the duality of one to the other. Thank you, appreciate you. Yeah, the duality from one to the other really just put that together. Where I was like, damn, this is cool from from one set to the next, and especially how you started the second one where you did that that poetic rhyme. I said, yeah, no, this is a way to set off the mood and go into a set. So definitely dope, super fire.
Nah, I appreciate that 100%. Um, so I did look at a few of your videos on YouTube. Let me double back out real quick. So the video, look, I was watching that
Oh yeah,
before,
yeah.
yeah, before the interview took place. Um, it's pretty interesting sometimes when you look back on people's journey. You had an afro, so I was
Word, yeah. I was like, damn,
I
that's
was like, yo, the growth is real. But even watching this video, I saw that you still had like this same confidence. Like it's just, some things about an artist never
mm.
change. And I could see that you've always had this confidence. So where did that come from? Like what ultimately like built you up to be like, you know what? I'm not afraid of anything. Like I can do anything.
I know the funniest thing about that is like I feel like the confidence was always there, but it was developed somewhere else. Like it was like I'm super confident when I'm like, all right, let me get on the stage, let me move like this, let me do this. Well, then when it's walk off, I'm like, hey guys, how's it going? Like it's a real duality. So I was like, damn, how am I gonna build this? But when it came to like that music video, like to look, it seemed like so much like I get to be formulaic about this. Like this is my entire like I get to build the world that I'm in where I'm like, once I built it, this is mine. I'm like I was the same way that I'm like I have the connection of a pen to paper. I have full control here. So
Mm-hmm.
I developed it where it was like the more times I performed or the more times I had that space to have my own or this is my world where it's like in my control or even outside of my control and I just get to live in it, you know. I'm like it's that confidence where I just know I'm like what you could take a pencil from me, you could take paper from me, you could take like where it would take me out of my environment, but you cannot take away my like a skill. And
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no matter what, I'm like, a skill's gonna stay with me, whatever. As long as I keep honing it, it's no different than a blade. I'm like, you gotta sharp that iron, however you gotta sharpen it. And I would say probably like into this year, I got really into like it was a thing that kept coming up in certain performances where it was like people would tell me, "Yo, you're doing really good on stage. I see you go on." Like they'll see me go on before or after, and say like I'm giving myself like notes or I'm thinking I'm like, "Nah, that didn't really hit how this did or this," and they'll tell me like, "Yo, be more confident when you're off. Like be as confident as you are off as you should be when you're on."
Mm-hmm.
And I got into that space now like this year where I'm like, all right, I have to kind of separate like Christian from that's crazy. I have to celebrate Christian from Trip, right? So I'm like, all right, right before I go on stage, I'm like, all right, who's about to go on? I'm like, Trip's about to go on. Trip is about to go do this.
Mm-hmm.
Like Triple C's about to go rip this. And it's sort of like a tag in, tag out sort of thing. Where I'm like, no matter what happens, this right here is mine. So it it's that confidence. I really feel like it built so much in that other side of me that it just bleeds into to just me as an individual now more than ever. Where it's like I know I know the worth in what I do, and the same way like I'm like oh that person's really dope. Like I could push them up. I could push up that part of me and be like oh don't mess with my pen. Don't mess with like
Right.
that setup that I could do and put together. So I
Mm.
feel like the confidence really just came from that trial and error and that real push for more. You know?
That's
Yeah.
tough. So would you say that energy derives from Triple C or Christian? Or rather, the question
Yeah.
is Triple C and Christian two different people?
So sometimes they be two different people. I'm not gonna lie.
He said sometimes.
Yeah, it's so weird because like I'm someone that I know when people look at me on the street like they're like damn this nigga looks crazy because like I'll genuinely just be talking to myself. I'll be like all right I'm about to go do this
For real?
this third yeah, and, but like but I'll be like walking on the street I'm like I was like, oh, mental reminder, get this done, do this, get this done, do this. And then it'll turn to like I'm out on the street, I have no headphones in, I just start rapping. I'm like I'll be standing in the middle, like on the middle of the subway. I'm like, yo, they're like, yo, this nigga's a loon. Like I'm sitting there, uh, I'm like, push packs, pass propane to provoke pastors, break bills, live fake thrills. I was born bastard. And niggas like, is he good? Is he all right? Like, so
Yeah, that's hilarious.
no word. So I'm like, I'm kind of just jumping in between myself while I'm doing that, and like I'm really big onto like meditation and like
Hmm.
prayer and how like just internal existence and putting things together. So when I'm like in that space and I'm meditating, I'm like, all right, what's it like Trip versus Christian?
Mm,
And there's so many parts where it's like, oh, we know each other, we know how things work, we know we have so many things that we have in common, and other times it's like, nah, if I feel like I I got it, I got like one like Trip is like, oh, once I touch that stage, I'm gonna murder this shit, and Christian's like, okay, let's go on with the plan. I'm like, no planning, fuck it, like so. I'm like sometimes it's two different ideas,
mm,
different
mhm.
ideologies, but like both just hold that purpose, and I see how they both are supposed to be how they are, do who they are, and just have they space, you know.
That's actually dope. It's so I was having that exact conversation like a few days back where I was asked, or rather, the conversation was around being MC Reef or
Yeah,
Sharif. And I've also realized that I started going places and started like introducing myself by my government
yeah,
name. And it's not an issue,
uh,
but like I also have this thing where it's like I want people to put in the work to know me. So I don't want to like go around you and just be like, well, hey, my name's Sharif,
yeah,
and
yeah,
this is where I live, and this is, so it's more like, okay, to everyone, I'm literally MC
yeah,
Reef, and I kind of like had to think sometimes, like, and this is also where a lot of the questions are coming from too, because, we are kind of similar in an extent.
yeah,
Um, me personally, I'm still dealing with like the fame, so to
mm,
speak. Like, like because like a lot of these people that I have been meeting, they are a little overbearing with it.
mm,
Like earlier this year, I had to tell this lady, she swore she had a husband and everything, but she's always in my DMs, like asking
yeah.
me questions or showing me stuff, and I'm just like, man, like.
I
Like who do you
swear.
think I am?
Yeah,
Like who do you think I am? But I think that, like even going back to that situation, when I met her in person, I feel like I was a little too open.
yeah,
Like I was just like, oh yeah, I'm a regular person just like you. I'm sitting at the bar just like you,
yeah,
blah blah blah. And I think that's the thing too. Sometimes we get a little too personal with our crafts.
yeah.
Sometimes we put too much of ourselves into it, which is so ironic because that's
The
the
point.
root of
Yeah.
our yeah, like, but
Mm,
I think there's like a fine line where you kind of do have to separate from the
yeah,
two, So I think I'm trying not to like treat it as two separate things, but
mm,
I do like to keep that fine line between it, and I like where I'm at now with it. It's just like certain people I have to remind where I'm just like, all right, go over to that side where everybody else is at,
yeah.
and yeah, there's only certain people in with like said community that actually fully know who I am. And again, it's not a secret. It's just that I would rather people do the work to do so.
No, truth.
Like don't just hear the next time song and be like, oh, you got girl problems. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like you feel me? So
Mm.
yeah, like actually step outside the art, that kind of thing. So
Get to
yeah.
know that person. It's even funny that you said that because like I feel like probably the person that knows the difference between like Chris and Trip the most for me is probably like my older brother because
Mm,
like of course he put me on to the hip hop when we were younger, but like I can't put another like hip hop ear against something more than his. So like
mm,
I'm like he doesn't know everything like to the terms where like I go in and do it, but he knows it to the sense of like the study and understanding like rhyme scheme and flow and double entendres and things like that. So anytime I'm like, yo, let me show you this song I just made. What do you think about these bars? What do you think about this? And like he'll constantly see me. I've probably like shown my brother stats of work just throughout, just showing him song after song. And
Right.
he's I think probably one like he hasn't seen me perform crazy amounts of times. And I'm like, it probably makes sense because I'm like, I probably performed for this guy in the kitchen or like in our crib more than like outside. And
Right.
he's like, yo, he told me, he's like, yo, when he touches that stage, I know who's gonna walk out on it. And
Mm,
he told me while he was there in the crowd, he was watching. He goes, yeah, like he's like, this is exactly who I expect to be on stage, and he's really happy like to see me get this off. He's like, this is exactly who I see in the kitchen all the time. And then when I sat down next to him after performing, he told me, he's like, yo, he could see that I'm like breathing heavy, and he's like, yo,
mm,
like when you were on there was no sense that I was breathing heavy. I was getting tired. There was just a good time and a vibe. So I'm like, that like Trip was on there, and then I come down. I'm like, yo, Christian is here to breathe. And he said, no matter what, like I see my little brother sitting next to me, but when he
mm,
gets on that stage, that is the craziest person I've ever seen. Like, and I'm like, yeah, that's exactly what I want. It's like that's like he said that is two different individuals.
mm,
That's
mm.
LeBron, the family man, versus LeBron on the Lakers winning at like 38, winning championships at 38 for real.
Right.
So yeah,
Nah, that's dope. That's dope, man. Thanks for sharing that for real. Um, so we getting near the ending or whatever. I try not to make it go over an hour. Sometimes it does, but I try to keep it under two. Um, I think my longest episode was actually 3 hours. So,
really,
but that was like that was a real personal episode. Like we was really having some deep
yeah.
conversation. So I mean, I don't stray away from long episodes, by the
Mm,
way. But I think it all depends. Like, Steph was actually someone who brought this to my attention. She was like, "What if you did make it a little shorter?" Like in the sense of like uh, creating like a template to where it's like you focus on certain things,
mm,
and like it's short, direct or whatever. But I would love to look at it from that angle. But I ain't gonna lie, I feel like I get a lot of dope guests, who are willing to share their story. So that's another reason why I leave it open.
yeah. Mm.
Yeah. But I wanted to ask, what's your, how can I say, what would be like your top five things to look out for as far as a creative in the industry moving forward? Like whether you're a poet or a music artist or both, what are five things that you feel like
Mm.
should be at the top of a creator's mind?
Oh, just like creative minds, like in general.
Not like when you navigate in an industry like this, because a lot
Yeah.
of people will find out very, very, very quickly that this life is not for
Right.
everybody. Like it looks cool in the moment, but when you have to deal with certain things, this ain't for you. Like so, yeah. Like what's some things that people gotta like either watch out for or be ready for, so to speak.
um, the like first one that comes off the dome, when you see any interview of your favorite rapper, your favorite poet, or this, that, and the third, and they say, yo, just do this, it's not just that. I promise you, I swear to God, it's not just that. It's because in reality, I know for me, like we keep saying, there's a duality between artist and individual, but like there's a duality between everything. Like depending on where you are in your life, like
Oh,
say just say you could just be alive and you just reach the age of like 30, 40, 50, 60. You could be like just as a man, you could be a father, you could be a church goer, you can be a bus driver, you can have another job on top of that, you could be a homeowner. Like you have to separate yourself into so many ways where it's like even if it's not those things, what is it for you to upkeep your car? What is it to upkeep your skin? What is it of the direction you're, are you a student? Like you have to go through so much. And if you're there and you're like, yo, I want to be an artist, now you're gonna have to deal with that of like being that individual within that, and then dealing with fans differently, friends differently, family differently. Like you have to be able to navigate it in such a way where, like, I see this interview where Jay-Z's like, yo, there's a knowing in being an artist. You can't have any doubt about that.
yep.
If like that, absolutely, I 100% believe. I feel like even for me, I'm like, I know this is exactly what I want to do. I just don't know how I'm gonna get there. And I'm like, even if I don't know, I know I'm gonna get there. And
100%.
and even if you doubt that, even if you're like, yo, maybe I should give up or quit, you still understand you can get there. So like that's that main thing first and foremost. Like if you think it's gonna be easy, if you think it's gonna be like straight shot, just do this. The only thing that's only you just believe in yourself and you gotta keep hitting. Yeah, you gotta keep
Mhm.
shooting. You shoot 400 and only make two. At least you made two. Make sure you just keep shooting and make four next time out of that 400. I'm like, all right, you got 1% off. You got 1% versus the 99%. You're gonna get there. Um,
Mhm. That's
yeah,
huge.
it's a huge one. Number two, uh, as like earlier stated, really, if like music, when you're in that space, you really think like, oh, I'm trying to get on. So everyone's really trying to get on. But
Mhm.
what does success look like to everybody? You know,
Right.
who are you gonna be around in the end? And not everyone's gonna have your best interest. Not everyone's gonna want that same thing. So always know what is it that you want. You know, for me, I'm like,
Mhm.
I I love the fact that in hip hop I can get success. I can reach my place doing whatever. Of course, you can get on by finding a way to get signed and then going up that way. But you could also get hits through radio. You could do some shows and then they find you through that. You can do it in a way where you build a fan base and find your own way around. With me, I'm like, I could genuinely build a community where a community wants to see me. And I found it like this. So I'm like, yo, if I can get out of the poetry, and sort of just also utilize the fact that like this poetry is helping me perform, as long as you have a way, you can do it. So when there's a will, there's a way. Very important.
That's a fact.
Um, but that was two. Uh,
I mean, if you don't have five, it's cool.
yeah,
I didn't know you was gonna, however you want to address it. Like if you want to stop at three, that's fine. It's up to you.
yeah, two. I think I genuinely have three more. Uh,
Go for it.
um, easily like another one is the plans change. So
Mhm.
if you feel like genuinely this works, and you're gonna do it, believe in yourself and your vision. But there's so many times where I'm going one way and I'd be like, hold on, this is the way I want to do it, and I'm like, you have to switch it. I know for a fact that I can keep pushing this way, but this may not be the
Mhm.
best route. This may not be the best route for me. It may not be the fastest. It may not be sturdy. Sometimes it's not worth it. Do what you're
Mhm.
worth doing. Um, Prioritize the art because you have to get you have to. I feel like there are some people's careers where I'm like, you kind of stopped somewhere. There's a cut off somewhere where it's like you
Talk
stop pushing.
about it.
Yeah,
Talk about it.
I'm like, you stop wanting it, and it once you see that, this is probably the best thing I've ever heard Felicia say. Shout out to Rise Felicia on Instagram.
Mhm.
She said you cannot fool the audience. They know immediately. I said, damn. Doesn't matter if you're on stage, doesn't matter what you're writing, you cannot fool them.
That's a fact.
Yeah, so
I'm big on that.
yo, huge on
Big on
that. After I heard that, I'm like, yo, that is a fact. So at that point, I'm like, if you don't want it, we're all gonna know you don't want it. We're all gonna know that you don't try. And some people will just ride with you regardless. But it's
that. Hmm.
it's up to you to really prioritize that art and that connection for yourself. Like where you going with it. So that's a major one. And the last one, more than anything else, um, beyond just keep pushing, keep thriving or whatever, have fun. Have genuine fun. Like
Seriously.
I remember when I was younger, I'm like, if I can't take anything away from what my pops said to me, he said this one thing. He said, for find the one thing you want to do for the rest of your life. Like just wake up and do it. And then just do that. Like what's that one thing you want to do forever? And then just do that every day. Find a way for it to make money. Find a way for that to work with you or whatever, but there's no like just wake up every day and do that one thing. And I,
Hmm.
I'll be so caught up and anxious. I'm like, yo, what if the outfit doesn't look good when I'm on stage, or what if I lose track of my words or get lost in it? And then I also remember right before going on stage at the theater, I'm like, oh yeah, have fun. And I'm like, cool. I'm about to go have a time right now. I'm like all this in between and everything going on. I'm like, yo, this is all super cool. But if I can't smile or be like laughing on stage or just like, yo, it's a real cool thing I had between me and this one person in the crowd or me between everyone in the crowd, and I'm like, it's not worth it. Have a good time. I came out here to go crazy. So have fun.
Real talk.
And
Real talk. And yeah, that's dope though. Thank you.
um,
Yeah, nah. Speaking of the having fun with it, I see that a lot so much at music events because it's like people they just want the lifestyle,
or,
so they show up, they ain't never performed a day in their life, or maybe they had, but they ain't never took it serious.
yeah,
They don't network with nobody at the shows and nothing like that. Like, there's no real etiquette to that. And then they get on stage, they're performing, and they realize that everyone's either talking or everyone's walking away, and they're just like, well, fuck y'all too. And it's
yeah.
just like, yeah, bro, like, you're supposed to have
I'm
fun
like,
with
damn,
this. Like, it's been
I thought you was enjoying yourself. Like,
Yo, and it's been so many times where, I've had to battle against the audience, like getting them to like rock
yeah,
with me.
yeah,
And then I realized that it was something that I wasn't doing.
mm,
Like it has nothing to do with them. Like, like I wasn't enjoying myself because I was so focused on trying to get them to
yeah,
listen. Instead of like, and now I just walk in places like, yeah, I know I got good music.
exactly.
Somebody's gonna listen to
I'm,
this shit.
I'm,
Somebody's gonna
I'm
hear it
nice.
and be like, okay. So yeah, always have fun with it.
Yeah,
I always now, especially it's funny you say that. Now, every time I walk into a venue, I just know there's someone that's gonna be able to make me laugh. Like
yeah,
someone is gonna enjoy this song a little more than I am performing it. So, yeah, nah, definitely.
mm,
Um,
for sure.
do you have any upcoming projects coming out as far as music? Any new poems? Any shows? Anything you got
Um,
upcoming?
Um, I I do have to go back to Florida to do physical therapy and get my like arm fully back in the motion. But
Mm,
I was like, all right, I came up here to do of course, uh, the Fear Free showcase that we did, and I'm like, while
hmm.
I'm here today, I'm gonna go to it's called the Hood School, which is an open mic event in I believe Harlem.
Okay.
Uh, tomorrow's Too Much and Extra with Will Succeed, King Camarilla. Um, Friday is the Spoken Moon events. I put that down on my list. Saturday there's always a writing workshop in Langston Hughes. I used to go there every
Somebody
Saturday.
told me about that actually. Somebody told me I should come to that.
Oh yeah, it's ran by Felicia, and she's super dope. One of the greatest poets I've ever
Now, I've
listened to.
actually met Felicia on tour, and
Okay,
yeah. So around the time where I started doing poetry events, I was in London,
really?
and I ended up bumping into her. Cause I was like saying to myself, I was like, "Yo, it'd be so cool if I ran into another American." And then that night, I actually ran into her, and it was like so dope. Like she's been mad cool ever since.
Oh yeah, she is the best. What I think in the first show, I'm Free, that piece I did, I actually got off because of Langston Hughes House. And
Mm,
she'll genuinely put
dope.
you through that whole thought process of like, all right, let's get into writing, let's get into this. Like, what does this piece mean? What concepts can we put together? So she definitely puts that on. So I know I'm going to that on Saturday, and then on Sunday I leave on Monday, and then on Sunday I'm doing the open mic cafe. I think that's the one I have to put down. So I'm doing as much shows as I can I can
Nah,
while I'm
that's
out
dope.
here. Yeah,
That's dope.
and then when I get this is low key, but like I kind of put the second set together in such a way where I'm like, all right, this is a concept for the EP or for a project, and I want to see what the turnaround is. I want to see like what can I fix here or there. But
Mm,
because of the overall response, I'm like, there's nothing really I want to change. So I'm planning
mm,
to like once I get back to Florida, I'm about to lock in on studio time and just create this EP and release that by like I believe the summer of 2025, depending on how recording goes. But everything's written, everything got a beat. I'm just want to lock in on recording and knock this out. So that's a upcoming project for sure.
That's dope. That's dope. So do you do you produce your own stuff, or like do you have a producer, or how does that work for you?
Um, sometimes I produce my own stuff. Um, sometimes like it doesn't really connect in a way where I'm like, all right, I've produced something, but I don't really want to rap on this, so I keep this to the side, or I could sell this later. Um, I have a lot of people that I met who are really good producers, so I'm like, yo, let me work with you. Even if I find something like online, or if, sometimes you gotta type in that YouTube beat, and
Mm.
sometimes I'll usually just use it for
Those are
like,
dangerous, though.
yeah,
Those are
those are
dangerous.
dangerous. You gotta know who you're working with, really. So like you have to read that description, and then you also have to reach out to them. If they never reach out, I never touch that beat. I'm that one's not going out. So with many
I
of
feel
those, yeah, with many of those, I'm like, yo, if I could pay you, agree upon this is what I'm doing, I have it in writing, cool. And if you need some more out of that, I absolutely got you, but we can handle that however it goes. And yeah, so it's usually like producers I know towards um if that one beat just catches me, I'm like, I can't leave that alone, or I
that.
produce it myself. But overall, it's all been skills that come off of literally just starting rapping. Like from rapping at 6, it was like, damn, I love to string words together. Let me get into poetry. To like, damn, I can't afford these beats. Let me learn how to produce. To like, damn, I can't get studio time. I'm gonna learn how to be a recording engineer. So like, it could all just kind of pieced itself in.
Right, and you have a home studio, though,
Yeah.
no?
Well, I have all my equipment with me. Like what I'd say, like last year, I have all the equipment to record, and I would like back in like Long Island, to for extra bread, I would go to other people's houses and be like, "Yo, we could record in your room," and and I would fully like whatever. Like I'm like, "Yo," and plus I'll do it for like 25 an hour, $20 an hour. Be here for a whole day. I'm like, cool. I get $120 today, $200 today. You get a track, and I'm bringing all the equipment with me. So
Mhm.
pretty.
So wait, did you go to school for engineering, or did you teach yourself? Like,
Yeah, I went to school for it. So at first I went to back in like 2020. I went to a university for it, but they
mhm.
it was right when the pandemic hit, and they're like, yeah, the engineering program, since we kind of have to be in a closed space in the booth to do that, we kind of closed it until 2024, 2026. I said, damn, I'm not staying here to to wait to do that. So I switched schools, found Nassau College out on Long Island, had the same setup and everything, and really great equipment. So I went and I learned off of that. And for
Okay,
about
okay.
like 2 years, a year and a half or so, yeah.
Uh, I probably should have asked this a little bit sooner, but you said it a few times. So do you live in New York or in Florida? Well, you said you're going back to
Yeah.
Florida, so do you live in Florida and just come out to New York, or?
I live in New York, but right now I'm staying in Florida because like after the accident, I had to kind of shift. I'm like, all right, let me
Oh,
be here.
so it happened out there.
Yeah, it happened
Oh,
in Dominican Republic, but
got it.
well, on the way back, I was like, it's gonna take too long to get to New York, and then on top of that, the hospitals are like ultimately better, you know.
Understood.
So
Understood. Got it.
yeah, so I was actually like I was born and raised down there all the way up until 18, and then I moved out here.
Oh, so that's dope then. That explains a lot then.
Yeah.
I mean, because I was just wondering, like, how do you go from Florida to New York and maintain your fan base here, which I think would be marvelous if that's actually what you were doing, like you
Yeah,
bouncing between the two.
yeah.
I thought that would be sick, you know. But hey, man, however you get it how you get it. Have you been enjoying your time in New York? Like, do you feel like this is somewhere you should have been, or?
Yeah, what I love it here because like I said, I was born and raised down there, but since my pops was up here and the radio station was up here, every summer or so I would already be up in New York from when I was a kid.
Oh,
So
okay.
I was always I always had a deep love and appreciation for New York because the seasons change, the people's change. There's so many different things. In Florida, it's summer all year round, and and I'm like I know exactly every person immediately when I see them. Like I know. exactly how everything moves. So it's I just always had that appreciation for community up here because it was always so different versus down there. Um, so I've loved my time in New York. I've gotten a lot more like freedoms. I'm around more. Usually I stay to just one part of my city when I'm down there, and there's not much more I go to.
Mm.
Here I jump through all five boroughs in a day, and like
I mean, shit, you had an itinerary already planned. Like,
exactly. So
nah, that's dope. That's dope, man.
mm,
Well, man, it's been really, really dope having you. Thank you for on such short notice because usually, I tell everybody this, like I don't just, pick anyone that message me and say, hey, let me be
yeah,
on your show. It's usually interesting. Like I could know people for years, but a lot of times, like my interest is just like that. Like I'll see somebody just like how I saw you perform, and I was like, yep, perfect guest. Like like it literally works just like that. So thanks for being available, on short notice. Thanks for coming on a platform, sharing your story, being vulnerable. That's a huge thing for me. Um, yeah, man. I wish you nothing but the best, man. You're a dope soul. You have great music, and I see that the people love you, man. So don't stop what you're doing, man. Keep going, keep striving.
appreciate that, man. Thank you so much. Thank you for putting me on. This is genuinely like I've had certain interactions where like we'll talk and we'll do videos and stuff like this, but this is a really cool platform to be on, and the fact that we could just genuinely sit down and have a conversation, especially after meeting each other just the other day too.
Yo,
It,
oh, but this is all that I want to do. I just want to offer a great platform for people that deserve it. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
People that like. So the creation of this came from, I felt like I wasn't getting the recognition that I
yeah,
deserve. Where I mean, I started doing this last year, by the way, which is so odd because that was the year that I actually started realizing people rock with me. Like I have a
yeah,
fan base. Like
mm,
like it. Like even I'm thinking even back to Saturday, having the whole fucking theater singing my song. Like
or
I never imagined
yeah,
that. I
keep
didn't
that, yeah,
plan for that. You know what I'm saying? So it's like now I'm like at the time I did it because I wanted people to get their
their flowers.
yeah, their flowers.
Mm,
So yeah, that's what that was about. My
uh,
bad for the distraction.
no,
But yeah, that's what that was really all about. You feel me? Just giving people their flowers. I feel like there's a lot of people just like me who may crash out. Like some people might not be able to take it that they can't get their recognition. So
yeah.
I want to save the day and be like, yo, here I notice you. Look at like so. That's what that's about.
All right. I really appreciate it, man. You keep keep doing this and keep making art because you already know. You already saw from the crowd reaction. Almost every, I assume every time you perform, and then on top of it, in that theater, they rock with the music. The music is super fire, and on top of it, you give that platform for many other artists to put them on. So I say keep it up, man. It genuinely just makes the community stronger and the mind better. So keep it on.
That's a fact. Appreciate that, man. Thank you, thank you. Um, all right, so this is the part where you close out because I got to do like a little farewell.
Got
Yeah,
you,
yeah.
got
So
you.
till next time, my brother. Thanks again.
All
Be
right.
safe.
You too, bro. Peace.
All right, guys. That's the end of another great episode. I can't miss. Can't miss. Told you every time we're gonna have a dope guest, we're gonna have a dope guest. So shout out to everybody that tuned in. Shout out to everybody that commented. This Saturday we have Lauren Nadine, I believe. I hope I said her name right. But she's a dope poet from the UK. We'll be touching my London roots. We'll be tapping in with the poetry scene in the UK. So make sure you guys tap in on Saturday. I will post on Friday the time that we'll be going live. So make sure you guys tune into that. If you guys that tuned in like what you see, give it a follow. I'm also on YouTube at Going Live with the MC. Peace out. See y'all Saturday.